Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the Medusa, the D-Major, and the remaining IEMs that I mentioned earlier in the review. Okay, these first graphs that we have here are the ones corresponding to the TRN Medusa and the conch. So let me just take away a few things here so that we can see things a little bit better. Okay, this is the stock graph of the Medusa. In essence, and when you look at it, it doesn't look like it's bad or anything of the sort. Nice big bass. We're talking about a bass gain of roughly 10 dBs, a pinna gain a little bit higher than that, about 12, peaking at about 2.5k and then slowly dropping off. There's a peak here which is probably couple related in some extension past 10k. Looking at it like that, it doesn't offend or mean or strike any concern, let's put it that way. But as I mentioned during the review, when you start listening to it, you can feel that the upper mids and treble are just overly energetic, especially when you start pushing the volume. At lower or more normal listening levels, yes, I guess you could say it's okay. They actually keep up with the bass, or the bass keeps up with them nicely. But then as you start pushing the volume, it just becomes a little bit overly unpolished. I'm not even going to say it becomes aggressive. I think the best word is just to say that it becomes unpolished. Anyway, when you then take it and you compare it, for example, with the conch, which is this graph that I just showed. My apologies. As I was saying, when you then take it, Medusa in its stock format, and you compare it with the conch, and this is the conch using the red O-ringed nozzle, you see there is very much a similar style of curve when it comes to the bass, up to about 1.5, but then things in the conch just continue in a much more polished manner, and that is then obvious when you listen to it. It is truly a very special sounding IEM, and when you consider the price that it costs, it's if I am sure that if no one was to tell you what it was and you were to blind test this IEM, you would never say that the price is what it is. Okay, in this format, comparing the stock Medusa with the stock conch, the conch is the better IEM. I mean, it's obvious. Okay, now when you do that small little retune that I mentioned to the Medusa, okay, and I'm just going to take away the conch here for a second, it completely changes this energy level here between 1.5 and about 8k, and that drop and that plateauing of things make it then become almost identical to the conch, as you can see. And then then the Medusa, in my opinion, really shines. It's going to be slightly warmer in terms of its sound because of the fact that it does have a larger driver, so this whole area here does manifest itself or does come forward as being more present, more prominent. But it is a completely and a totally different sounding beast, and it's a pity that TRN, as I mentioned as well, didn't consider making it with this tuning straight from the get-go, or then doing some adjustable or interchangeable nozzles like they did in the conch, and provide both tunings and in that way satisfy everybody, let's put it that way. So this is basically the Medusa for you. Okay, let's move on now to the Twistura D-Major, and let me start here with the different tunings that are provided by the various nozzles that it has. Okay, one of the tunings that it has with one of the nozzles is this tuning. This is using the black nozzle, okay, and by black I mean the O-ring obviously on it. Looking at it that way, it doesn't look again bad or anything. You can see that there's definitely an emphasis on the mids, especially the vocals. Upper mids are the more prominent, with a very kind of neutralish type of bass presentation. We then have this other tuning, which is even more enhanced, which is the one which has the blue O-ring. It further even enhances the, let's say, possibly the technical capabilities of the IEM, while maintaining the rest basically the same. And then there's the nozzle, which is the one that I prefer, which is this orange one. Let me just take it away. The other two, which you can definitely see is well, compared to, let's say, the first one, so you guys can see the difference. You can see that there's a little bit of a boost here in the bass, okay? But then it's the way that the whole pin again picking up later at 4K and then dropping off. It's just the way that this is done, and then the ultimate balance that is struck between the bass and then the upper mids and treble, that makes it substantially more pleasurable to listen to. Okay, this is using the stock tips. I used it using the 07 tips from KBE, and that's the graph that I got with those tips. And the reason why I chose those tips is because it's the same tip that I also used on the Zuleniao Z4, which I'll be putting up the graph now, and that's how I did the comparison. So let me just take away this out quickly here. So this is the Twistura D-Major using 07 KBE tips. Nice bass execution, no bleeding to the mids. You know, still definitely a focus on the mids. They are the start of the show. Good sense of space, you know, it's a nice IM for those that favor the more clinical, more let's say technical presentation, but it still has an excellent balance in terms of how musical it can be, and that's precisely the reason why I left it with this nozzle, and I like it with this nozzle. It really plays well. Anyway, comparing it with the two selections that I have, which is the Zuleniao and the HD Sound Hot Mirror, this is compared. Let me first put here the HD Sound Hot Mirror. This is compared to the HD Sound Hot Mirror, and you know, when you look at it that way, you think, oh, okay, but the Hot Mirror is very lean on the bass, and it's also quite prominent here in the mids in relation to the bass, and so on and so forth. Let me just take away quickly the Twistura. Okay, yes, vocal centric, but the reality is, because of the way that the balance is struck between the two extremes of the frequency has been done, it ends up being very similar to the sort of balance that we get here as well on the D major. It's not here that you will see the difference that allows for that, let's say, kind of very similar presentation. It's, you know, how it is very much plateaued after the initial pin again of 2K, peaking at 2K. It just plateaus all the way across, and you do notice that there's just a little bit more twinklies and sparklies. It's not a big difference, but you notice it, okay? That as well, coupled to the fact that you do have a little bit less bass. The difference is not as significant as what you would see by the graph, makes the HD Sound Hot Mirror sound really good. It at least in my opinion, I think it's an IEM that very much is underrated. And when it came out, the only other IEM that kind of was very similar to this sort of tuning was the 10i5, the T2, and this, in my modest opinion, just completely obliterated the T2. The T2 had this style of tuning, but very much unpolished when compared to what the Hot Mirror could offer. Okay, and then the other one that I selected is the Z4, and again with a specific nozzle, and I think the graph speaks for itself. They have basically the same tuning. What has been dropped here in the bass has been dropped there as well, in that area there of the upper mids to treble, and so the overall balance of sound that you have is exactly the same. And ultimately, I even think that personally I would go for the Z4 over the D major. I mean, you really can't go wrong either way, but that's just me. I think I would opt for the Z4, and especially because the Z4 does offer just a slightly nicer accessories package. They both are roughly the same price, between the $45 to $50 price bracket. I mean, the Zuleniao, I think, is another IM that just kind of was very much misunderstood and didn't really get the attention that it deserved. Okay, anyway, that's the Zuleniao and the D major. Let me just quickly eliminate some of the stuff here which we are not going to be needing, and move on. Okay, moving on now to the DUNUs. Let me just I think I'll actually start with the original Titan, and then move on from there. So the original Titan basically had this tuning. The bass was not as prominent as what you would think by looking at the graph. This particular Titan that I have here is a Titan that I bought around April of this year. So it's let's say one of the last Titans, or one of the more recent Titans, not the original first let's say series that came out, but I actually compared it to one of those first series, and the difference is just a little bit less bass. So it's not even something which you can say that it's a different sort of tuning or anything of the sort. It's basically the same thing. But anyway, talking about the tuning, the bass is way more relaxed than what the graph would make you believe, but it's this way that the mids, upper mids and treble are done, which has always made the Titan be such a crowd favorite for those that liked the technical aspect of things, like the more audiophile, more neutrality type of technical sound. And although yes, you can say that it is musical, it is also sometimes just a little bit too thin, depending on what genres. If you like vocal centric stuff, then fantastic, it will play very, very well. The Titan S2 is when you look at it this way, and I put the graph this way, you think it's not going to be that much difference. No, but the difference is significant. And the first thing that you notice, which makes the difference quite significant, is the bass. Although not graphically seeming to be much more, it is way, way more bassy. No comparison possible. In terms of how then the pinna gain is done, and if you actually notice, it's very similar. Just the original Titan has a drop of the 4K roughly, while the S2 kind of plateaus a little bit more, and then it drops. But the difference is very noticeable, and you definitely do see that we are now in the presence of an IEM which has a more safer style of tuning, a tuning that will be perhaps more agreeable to a larger crowd of people. Anyway, let me take away the Titan. Comparing now the Titan S2 with the Kemas, and I'm actually going to show you first the Kema, the original Kema. Okay, if I normalize it at 1K, it's like there. If I normalize it at 500 Hertz, probably would be a little bit more correct. And in that aspect, or with this normalization at 500 Hertz, I would say yes, there is a lot of similarities. Definitely the bass does sound very, very similar, but you notice that this forwardness here of the Kema is noticeable, and what it makes is for an IM, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it didn't do anything wrong, but it didn't do anything particularly stand out. It was nicely tuned, but somewhat lifeless to a certain extent. I can't really explain. I didn't dislike it, but when you consider that it was $100 IM, there were other things that would satisfy you more. Then they came out with the classic a little bit later. Okay, number 16, and let me just make sure that it's 100% there on the 500 Hertz. There we go. And when you compare, and let me take away the classic. Well, not the classic, sorry, the original Kema. And when you compare the Kema Classic with the Titan S2, you see that there is definitely a lot more similarities. The energy level of the mids and upper mids and treble is basically the same. The extension past 10K basically the same. And even the majority of the bass, this difference here, you'll be hard pressed to notice it. But yes, in certain occasions, there's just a little extra amount of low bass. And then even though it seems again forward as compared to the Titan S2, in reality, when you listen to it, it doesn't come across that way. It comes across as actually being a way more satisfying IEM than the original Kema to start with. And kind of very much what the S2 offers, but just a little bit more fun, a little bit more engaging. And that's why I even said that between the Kema Classic and the Titan S2, I think I'd probably even take still the Kema Classic, because it just, I don't know, it just does everything that the Titan S2 does, plus it just has a little bit extra energy, a little bit more life here and there that makes it more of a sensible choice. And if you already own one, I mean, the S2 is not going to be let's say an alternative. I mean, the reality is this: DUNU with the S2 try to go the more safe style of tuning, and yes, on its own it is a well-tuned IM. It doesn't offend, but it just doesn't have anything that really makes it stand out in a crowd where you have such, some really great IMs, and even like I said, I would probably take a TRN conch over this, to be totally honest. I mean, I think I've still got here the graph of the conch, and for the sake of comparison, TRN conch, exactly, there we go. Okay, this is the TRN conch. Let's normalize it as well at 500 hertz. There you go. I personally think that the conch, as you can see, also very similar style of tuning. The conch is just more satisfying than the DUNU S2. I mean, the graphs are there. The graph is there, and what you listen on one and the other is also very much correct. What the graph is showing, the conch is just a more agreeable IEM, in my opinion, costing a third of the price. Okay, so that's it. Let's move on. Okay, let's move on now to the NF Audio RA15. And okay, this is the NF Audio RF15's graph. Again, when you look at it initially, it doesn't have anything which you can consider offensive. A nice full bass. Okay, yes, you have this a little bit extra energy at 5K, but listening at normal volume levels doesn't really strike you as it's going to be a problem or anything of the sort. I mean, the bass gain, we are talking about a bass gain of roughly, so there we go, 8 dBs, and then yes, we do have a gain on the mids and upper mids and treble, which is a little bit more. We're talking about 13 dBs. Okay, now it's when you start pushing the volume, or just crank it up just a little bit, that then this whole area of the upper mids and treble becomes just a little bit too much. And even though yes, there's a nice mid bass thump, it doesn't help to tame it down, in my opinion. I can see it making sense in a maybe a live music presentation or something of the sort, that yes, you want this energy level here to maybe be a little bit stronger than normal. But in musical terms, it's not that it's bad, no, but it's just a little bit too much. You do have those two interchangeable nozzles that you can use. They measured the same. I didn't see, at least with the ones that I got with my IMs, there was no difference with my RA15, sorry. I didn't see any difference between using one nozzle or the other. The difference that existed, it's like minimal, and it was around here, but it was minimal to be significantly, to be something that you'd notice. So I took it upon me to then make my own little tuning, and I came up with this, which you can see is basically maintaining the bass untouched. And what I've done is just lowered this area between, let's say, 2 and 8K. And by lowering this area here on the RA15, what I've effectively done is maintain the bass gain at what it was already before, so the roughly the 8 dBs, roughly about 7.5, 8 dBs, but also brought the pinna gain to a similar level of 8, 9 dBs. And the balance that is now struck between the two extremes of the frequencies is much more pleasant, much more pleasurable. Some might argue, okay, but you've lost some detail up top. Yes, true. At low volumes, you have lost a little bit that detail. But I've gained in terms of timbre, tonality, in terms of musicality, and I've gained as well in terms of scaling. When I now push the volume, everything just goes up in a more equal manner, and it maintains itself, very, very nicely. Obviously, and I'm going to put now, the LM, the SimGot, the LM 500 EA 500 LM, sorry. You can see that they actually have a lot of similarities, the EA 500 LM with the particular nozzle that I'm using, to this modified RA15. And when you listen to it, initially, yes, it does kind of strike you like they are the same thing. But then the moment you start you select something which has got a little bit more bass or just a little bit more energy, you notice that the 500 LM is just a more polished IM. This whole area of the mids, upper mids, and treble just comes across in a much smoother manner. Honestly, there's very, very little that I personally can consider a fault on the 500 LM. Yes, it does have this tuning, which is kind of more of the harmonish kind of vibe, let's put it that way, but it just plays well. I've always really liked both the original EA 500 and the EA 500 LM. I just think that they play really, really well. The proof is in the pudding. It's to be seen. My modified RA15 does emulate it better and does make it a nice sounding IM. Definitely, I wish that they had done the tuning. NF Audio would have done this type of tuning on the nozzle, so you could have one and the other sort of sound presentations. But look, they decided to do it the way they did it. That's that. But the biggest problem is price. We're talking $100 roughly versus something that can be bought the 75 to 80 price, $75 to $80 price bracket, equally as well built, as well accessorized, if not maybe even better accessorized. Nice carrying case. It's just a better IM overall, the EA 500 LM. Okay, it's just a better IM. Now, if I take the RA15 and I compare it with some of its previous IMs, it can be debatable. I don't think it's better than the plus versions of the NA and the NM. Maybe compared to the NM, the normal version, NM2, okay, maybe you could say that this is possibly a better IM, but I don't know. I think that NF Audio should have maybe just been a little bit more assertive in the way that they would have, in the way that they tuned this IM, and kind of become a little bit more aware of what is around in terms of other manufacturers and what they offer. Not losing sight of what their premise in terms of tuning philosophy or how sound is, but I think they could have done a little bit better. They really could. And that's that. So that's the NF Audio out of the way. Okay, now we have here, let me just take away the 500 LM for a second. Okay, now this is the Soundrhyme, the SP01 or SP02. I forget now. My apologies. I also want to apologize for another thing, which is earlier I was in the review, and with so much to talk about, I misinformed you about the fact that it didn't have exchangeable nozzles. It does have exchangeable nozzles. However, not only did I not see any difference between one and the other when I measured them, I've actually lost the other nozzles that came with it. And obviously when I went about doing the review, by not seeing them, I assumed that it didn't have, and then it was actually a fellow audiophile that called my attention to that by having seen the first part of the video, and I'm actually glad that he did, because that way I could apologize for this mistake. I have already ordered another set of SP 01s to confirm what I had already seen, because I've got the graphs of both measurements when I did it, but I just want to see if maybe yes, there was something wrong there or not, in terms of me not measuring properly or anything, because I would have liked to actually reconfirm it. But anyway, this is with the nozzle that I had put on the SP01, which is a nozzle which has a golden grill, and like I said, this nozzle being its tuning, I can't really say that I didn't enjoy the tuning or that I disliked it or anything. No, it's fine. Very nicely done bass. Bass is definitely not an issue here. Strong mid bass presence, and then actually, the way that the mids, upper mids, and treble are done, it's nice. This gives you the typical Penang house sound. It's a organic sound, very much more musical than necessarily clinical or ultra detailed or ultra technical. It's curious that when you actually put the LM5, the 500 LM next to it, they you know, there isn't dramatic differences. The kind of the basic premise is there. It's just a question of balance. So definitely the SP does come across as being more colored because the bass is more present, more there, more, you know, more noticeable. So it skew the balance for it to be a warmer type of sound. Again, let me repeat. I don't dislike it. I like it. I think it's nice. But still, it doesn't take away from what I said during the review, which is, although capable, although, you know, solid sounding, and decently well tuned, you know, good vocal presentation, it just doesn't have anything that makes it be justified when compared to other IMs, which are even cheaper and offer the same and superior performance to it. If you have something which is exactly the same performance and it's cheaper, automatically that one wins in my books. You know, it's as simple as that. But again, I'm not gonna, you know, be too negative about the SP. The SP is a nicely tuned IM. It's solid enough. It just, you know, I think its biggest obstacle is the price that it has. It's, you know, and then as I mentioned as well in the review, when you have something like the Neo 1, which is a very capable IM, you know, you have to kind of say, is it really worthwhile? I mean, you also have the D10, which also follows this philosophy of a more warmer, bassy sound. I personally feel that the D10 is a better IM, and I even forgot to mention the Panon Fan, not the Fan 2, the Panon Fan, which again also has this more bassy kind of presentation, but very nicely done, very nicely executed, as compared to the SR1 from Soundrhyme. The SP is better, okay? The SP is a better IM. So with regards to its direct sibling, yes, as compared to other products from the Panon stable, it's got its qualities, undoubtedly, but I think the other products are still slightly superior. That's my opinion, just slightly superior. All of them do have a sound which is more on the colored side of things, not as polished, not as audiophile, but, you know, not bad. Okay, I believe that's enough for the SP. Actually, let me just once again just show you here the LM so you guys can see. And why not show you as well the RA15 as compared to the SP. You can see that there's also some similarities in the way that my version of the RA15 has been tuned. Obviously, it loses out in terms of the bass. The SP does have a lot more bass. Okay, well, I mean, in terms of the bass gain, which I actually didn't mention, but just for you guys to see, we are talking about a bass gain of roughly 12 dBs, with then that difference that exists to the pin again being the reason why it has that more warmer, more old school type of vibe, you know, which again, I repeat, I like it, I personally enjoy it, but it might not be to everyone's satisfaction. Okay, we now have the graph for the Oriveti Dynabird, and again, you know, when you first have this look at the graph, you don't really think that, you know, okay, nothing really offensive. We see the slightly elevated 2.5k peak here at the pinna, but the rest is actually quite well executed. Nice sub bass focused, you know, the bass glides into the mid, so no bleeding, nothing, very nicely executed. However, when you do listen to it, at least myself, with, you know, and with the genres of music that I like listening to, what I noticed was that this area here just came across just a little bit too much at times, and the practical result was, with certain songs, it was absolutely phenomenal. It played really well, and it you know, it kept up with things like the 500 LM. Let me just quickly balance the two of them so we can see what I'm talking about. Sorry. Just this one that I want to move. Okay, so if we just balance these two, you know, but then it just I don't know, it just, those particular songs, by looking at the graph, you wouldn't even think that what I just said is the reality. But with certain songs, and look, this is me obviously having to, well, not having to, but when we have IMs, like as I mentioned earlier, that are so similar, so equal, there are factors which you have to start maybe kind of nitpicking to differentiate and to see the differences. Overall, the balance that is struck with the 500 LM again is a better balance. It's as simple as that. And on its own, the Oriveti, the Dynabird, it's not a bad IM. It's not. It is just, maybe, as I mentioned as well, maybe if they have had the option of having adjustable nozzles, and yes, the Dynabird does not have adjustable nozzles, maybe they could have offered a tuning which would be basic what you see in the green line, and then an alternative tuning where this was slightly brought down and kind of excuse me, made for a more pleasant presentation. It's as simple as that. It's not. I'm not trying to be complicated or bring down a model or a brand or anything of the sort. No, I'm just trying to show you guys that yes, there are some really nice IMs out there, but there are still those ones that are the ones that will, at least in my books, be the ones that I will be referencing first because they tick more boxes in the right manner. The Oriveti, as I was saying, nice sound, it sounds good, pleasant, just that little extra energy that sometimes detracts from certain songs, a little bit of the magic that I like to hear. But otherwise, overall, not bad. It's just the price. There's really nothing there that for those extra amount of dollars that you're paying justifies it fully. Okay, so that's that. And now finally, we are going to talk about the Kefine Delci, and I'm going to show you first the Kefine Delci, the original graph of the original version, and then the Kefine Delci, the AE, in its two versions of tuning. So this is the original Kefine Delci. Plenty of focus of bass. Again, as you can see that the sound is skewed towards being more bass centered, although the majority of that bass is below 100 hertz, so it doesn't really interfere with the mids, upper mids and treble, in my opinion, and it just confers a very nice, smooth, easygoing kind of sound, which is personally my preferred style of sound. I like this sort of sound. Okay. When we now compare it with the Delci AE, and I'm going to put both graphs. I'm going to put the stock graph with one of the tips, and then the stock graph with the alternative tip. Okay, the stock tip, which is the silver colored one, when you compare it with the original Delci, they are basically the same. This difference here, I couldn't pick up on it. They are very identical. I mean, honestly, truthfully, very, very identical. The same. I tried different tips to see if maybe there would be more difference. No, that makes no difference. They sound exactly the same. And I think that this here is just more down to maybe set variance from, than anything else. Okay. Now, when you put the, let me leave here the Delci AE in its, let's say, stock tuning, which is a more smooth tuning that I prefer. And now let's put here the Delci AE with the other alternative nozzle, which is the brass nozzle. It gives you that extra energy here at 2.5 and a little extra energy there at 6, maintaining the rest the same. And what this does is give you that little extra amount of detail that supposedly will make the overall presentation more technical, more detailed, improved micro and macro details, more resolution, all those things. Personally, I found that this with the silver nozzle was more than capable. If you recall, I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago that because the majority of the energy that's given in the bass is below 100 hertz, yes, you do notice that there's that little extra more, a little bit of detail, okay? But it's not this little extra little bit here, that little extra little bit over there, which are so significant that you will pick up on it and say, oh no, this is way more detailed and it's much better. I think it's just a very smart move in the part of Kefine to offer these two tuning nozzles, and for them, yes, to be different slightly, and to then be able to cater for those that like a more smoother presentation like me, or for those that like a presentation with just that little bit more detailed, a little extra more twinklies and sparklers. Let's put it that way. And they did it while keeping the price basically the same. And now when you take now, let me put here the EA500 LM. When you take the EA500 LM, again, the EA500 LM for me, compared with the Delci AE with the brass nozzle, is still overall a little bit more polished. Not a huge difference, but a little bit more polished compared with the Delci AE, but using the silver tuning nozzle, which is like the original Delci. I would say that although noticeable the difference between one and the other, the EA500 LM, a little bit more clinical, a little bit more technically inclined, but still very much musical, okay? And the other one, the Delci, the original OE, the OG, more warmer, more organic in its presentation. I just, you can't, there's no clear winner, let's put it that way, okay? There's no clear winner. And that's why I said earlier that, you know, these two IEMs, for me, maintain themselves as the most clear and obvious choices if you are wanting a solid IEM under $100. They both have the adjustable nozzles. I haven't messed around with the nozzles on the Delci AE to see what other kind of tunings I can get, but they both have adjustable nozzles. They both have really good build quality. They both have excellent drivers inside of them, which is evident by the way you listen to one and the other, and you can't go wrong with either one of them. And when you have something like this, you know, it's difficult to then have other brands come along and beat them completely, because they don't. It's not, and let me just put here a few of the others. It's not a Titan S2. Let me just bring it down here. Okay, it's not a Titan S2 that beats it, although you can see that the similarity in tuning between it and the 500 LM is pretty similar. But no, the DUNU does not beat the 500 LM. The tuning is similar, but when you listen to it, you do notice differences in the way that they come across. The 500 LM just comes across more mature. When you listen to the Delci AE and you compare it to the Titan, the same situation, the Delci AE just comes across as a more, in my opinion, for my ears, just as a more mature sounding IEM. Okay, you take for example the Oriveti, the Dynabird. Let's put the Oriveti over here. Again, the Oriveti, yes, it's got great bass, no denying it's got really good bass, but this area here for me just jumps to me. Maybe with some of you guys it won't be a problem, but you know, it just jumps too much. And when I compare it to the Delci, the AE, I just find that the Delci has just struck a nicer balance of things. The bass on both of them is almost identical. They to be truthful, there's really no difference here, and you can see that the 1 kilohertz normalizing or the 500 hertz normalizing is basically on the same spot. So there's no difference in the bass, to be honest. But you do notice this, and that makes the Delci AE just that little extra, little bit more pleasant to listen to, at least once again to my ears. Let's see here what else we have. That's done. Oh, the RA15, and I'm not even going to compare with the RA15 the stock tuning. I'm going to compare it with my tuning. No, the Delci is still the better IEM. The Delci AE is still the more balanced out tuned IEM. It might have just a tad little bit less soundstage size. Yes, I won't deny that, but it's just a nicer IEM overall in its tuning. With the 500 LM, we've talked about it. With the Soundrhyme, with the SP1, there is a lot more similarities than what you would think, but the SP is bassier, and it just makes the sound overall more, yes, the sound is more energetic, but also less elegant. You know, I think, yeah, the biggest thing, yeah, or the biggest deciding factor is that we are talking about an IM which is cheaper, which is the case of the Delci AE, and overall just better tuned. It's just more, you know, even if I take and compare it with the tuning of the AE in its, let me actually just change the color here so you guys can see it. Even if I take it with the breast style tuning of the AE, we put it here in blue. Okay, even then the AE still sounds more elegant, more polished. Although it's not my preferred tuning, it's still more elegant, more polished than the SP1. Although, again, to be fair to the SP1 and to not kind of convey the wrong idea, the SP1 has got a really nice bass, which gives it this very nice old school, very much Panon style tuning. So you can't fault it. I like the SP1. I'm not going to deny it. I'm just trying to look at things in a more wide view, not thinking only about myself, but thinking about you guys and what you'll probably consider the better tuned I am. And I think that's basically it. I mean, I've basically talked about everyone. I could, just for the sake of, here's the conch, just because I did mention it earlier. And let me just put here the Delci AE in its preferred tuning for me. This is the LM, the 500 LM, and number 4 here. Let me just change the color. Let's make it red so it stands out. And this is the TRN conch, again with my preferred tuning nozzle, compared to these two beasts. And to finalize, I think in the under $100 price bracket, I think these 3 IMs are definitely the better choices, without a question. As you can see, the AE, the Delci AE, the 500 LM, and the TRN conch are 3 very well executed IMs. 3 very, very well executed IMs. Guys, this is enough. This has been a huge video for all of these IMs. I hope I am not boring you too much. Like and subscribe. Questions, please feel free to ask. All right, you take care now. Bye-bye.